This is the fastest way to get a 4.0 GPA from any starting point. Because a few years ago, I was nowhere near it. I was 16, it was days before my mock exams, and I was busy taking beautifully organized notes for every topic. I'd spent months doing this, compiling all of the information in one place, rewritten, perfect headings, everything. And there I was, sitting there a day before, okay, all my studying done, let's read through them properly now. But as soon as I started to read through them, I knew that something was so wrong. My gut started to turn over, and it slowly dawned on me how big of a dumbass I'd been. Because at this point, trust me, I thought I'd studied everything by now. So tell me why this felt like the first flipping time that I was studying the topic. Like, what was I doing? What was I thinking? I'd been studying for months and I'd not moved an inch? Was I stupid? Was I slow? No. What I'd done there was what every single one of you has also done. I can guarantee it if you were a tryhard like I was. Because in those last few months, what I'd done is study in the absolute stupidest ways possible. Ways that helped retain nothing. So I stepped back and I remember it was like 1 AM or something stupid, and I was thinking like, okay, I'm cooked, it's so late, what do I actually do now? I know nothing, so what is the most logical way to learn all of this? And the answer was to have a look at the exam papers and questions and work backwards from there. And surprisingly, the more I read, the more I realized that this exam had a formula. The questions and answers over the years had patterns. The number of questions that tested pure knowledge was the same every year. The questions that tested the style of reasoning was again the same every year. You always get 1 mark for definition, 2 marks for the example, and then another 2 for the explanation. It's the same every time. And the topics, it was like the same 6 topics came up again and again, and the rest were just sprinkled around, mainly over the years. It was like the exam had a recipe and I'd figured it out, because it felt like I could suddenly predict what was going to be on it. And so the logical next step that I knew I had to do, and this is step 1 for you by the way, is to tally all of the topics that had come up in the exam questions over the years. And I'll put up an example of this tally, but what you have to do is figure out how much they come up, how often they come up. Some questions, some topics will come up more than the others, but the real finding was that most topics were only really assessed in 3 or 4 ways over and over and over. They kept using the same question style and the points in the marking scheme again and again. And so I continued to do this analysis, I made the notes for it, and within 30 minutes, 1 hour of this paper analysis that I was doing, I had the whole blueprint for the exam ready to go. And before you go and comment, oh, I don't have past papers down below, listen, wait. These are all the alternate forms of questions that you can find for your exams. You can analyze. These are all the ways. I'll put them up, how to get those papers as well, because it is possible to find past questions for every single curriculum. I don't care what subject it is, because all of the topics and subjects you've been taught are being taught for decades. There's no excuse. And because I know it's difficult to analyze these papers, most people don't know what to do, I'll make a proper step list for how you can actually analyze these papers, these questions, exactly like I did to get those results. And so now, after all of this analysis, like a thief planning a heist, I felt like I had the map to what I need to do to get the highest grades possible for this exam. And from that map, I could come up with a specific way to revise, the exact steps I would need to revise to do what. And that is step 2. Based on all of this analysis that you've done, now you prioritize the order in which you study each and every topic for that exam. And this is how you do it. Divide up all the topics that you have into 4 boxes. Weak and strong on one side of the table, and the common and the uncommon topics on the other side of the table. And then you just put the topics within those boxes. The most important ones to do first are the common and weak topics. Second, you do the common and strong topics. Third, you do the uncommon and weak topics. And then fourth, you do the remainder of them. The second you do this prioritization, you'll have perfect clarity on exactly when to study each and every single thing in your syllabus. Which for me, honestly, it solved half the problems I had before the exam. I had an exact guide. But now the other half of the problem is, how would I then revise all of these in the short amount of days I had before the exam? And that is step 3. But before I give you that final step that every teacher would basically think is borderline cheating, let me give you one piece of advice. It is all well and good to learn only with the goal of acing exams. Like we've been talking about this entire video, it is necessary at times, I get it. But an important lesson that I've learned, honestly, is that it is so doable to squeeze in deep learning that you'll remember for far longer when you're actually studying. Yes, you might have to read a bit more to figure out the why behind the stuff that you're learning, but you asking those questions to feed your curiosity is the thing that'll make the information stick and also make learning the whole thing kind of fun. And so the way I recommend you do this is for some topics that you know you care about, that you know are important, read a bit deeper, learn a bit beyond the exam, because that itself will help your understanding on the whole. And instead of using Google or chat, which are quite superficial in nature, I find, use scientific search engines like Consensus AI that extract complete information to deepen your knowledge from millions of scientific studies. It's a no-brainer. Because think about how powerful it is to learn directly from research studies about the specific topics from the primary sources compared to just like Google or chat where they just take stuff from articles and things like that. Especially for medics and STEM students, it gives you verified specific information about your topics that you know will be accurate. And the way you use it is quite simple. All you do is when you're studying and you find something a bit tough, you type out the question you have about the topic that no one really knows how to answer, none of your friends do, none of your teachers do, and you, boom, get the exact knowledge from all of the research studies about this topic, including, by the way, the data collected, the full conclusions. This is what the top research in the world is saying regarding your specific question. And if you want to take it beyond learning, if you're writing papers at this stage, if you're doing research for your essays, they've even launched something called Deep Search, which I use for the literature search of my research paper that I wrote in the summer. When you type out the topic or the question here, it breaks down the single question you ask into 20 plus categorized, like, targeted other questions. It analyzes the hundreds of papers that come up and it creates a full-sighted report with visuals that map the entire landscape of that topic out. It is just hyper useful. I would very much recommend it because it saves so much time. I've been talking about Consensus on this channel for so long. I've introduced it to so many of my friends because honestly, it is astounding. So if you're curious and you want to try Consensus out during your study sessions or for your research papers, check the link out in my description. It gives you a free full month of the premium subscription so you can try it out till your heart is content. But for now, let's get back to the fastest method to ace your exams, what I've been using for years. This is step 3, how to actually study a large amount of information in that short amount of time. I had the recipe, I had the formula for what to do, but the way I started to revise was I just started to do the questions from the past papers and the question banks. But here was the twist. When I had to properly learn something, when I got answers wrong, when I had to restudy the topic because I didn't know it, I would avoid just using those books and my notes. Instead, I'd use the specific marking schemes from the past papers. Legit, I would read through the answers within those marking schemes and study using them. Because when I was doing this for each and every topic, I was legit going through the information that will directly give me marks on the exams. And I know this is top level cheesing the system as much as possible. I even took this to a whole other level with my biology exams. I made a spreadsheet with the last 10 years worth of essay questions that had come up on the exams, organized topic by topic, and then I pasted their mark scheme answers right beside in the next column. And what I would do then to study each topic is I would black out the whole marking scheme column and try and recall only the specific bullet points within each marking scheme answer. Again, this was obviously extreme, but I primed the way and the things that I was learning for this specific exam. The more I saw that all of the answers for that topic had the same repeated bullet points within the marking schemes that the examiners want you to write down in the exam. Like, you couldn't write what I was finding out the more I was doing it. And so by the time those finals came up, nothing on those papers surprised me. For the first time ever, I walked out of the exam room saying, that was pretty easy, to be honest. And everyone hated my guts for saying that, of course. But if, like me, you predict what is going to come up on the exam and study using the ways that I've told you to study, the game, it honestly just gets too simple. And the result of this was that I somehow ended up scoring one of the highest MYP grades in all of the UAE and Pakistan as well that year, which definitely sent my ego through the roof. But the strategy, it worked. And honestly, I've been repeating it to the best of my ability every year since. I used it on the IB exams. I scourged the internet to find university past papers when I was doing biomed. I still do it with my med school exams. We ham on those questions year after year. Every time, it is the same process. It's just different subjects and different pressures, but it's exactly the same outcome as well. That one night, when I was 16, when I was screwed, when I made that decision, that was just the start. It was the first time I opened my eyes and realized that working harder, studying harder is not going to be the solution to better grades. And if nothing else, I just hope one of you watches and realizes you don't need a new brain or some insane motivation to do it. You just need to stop studying with blindfolds on and start studying with direction, with intention, with strategy. Because that is all it takes. One change to improve the way you learn today. That's it. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, spam the comments, do the usual stuff, and I will see you in the next one.